So either you share everything 50-50. It's just like, yeah, it doesn't matter how much you make or how much I make. If we buy a $100 TV, can you buy a TV for $100?
I don't know. Maybe it's a small one.
Hello and welcome to the Pillow Talks podcast. We're your hosts, Vanessa
and Xander Marin.
I'm a sex therapist with over 20 years of experience.
And I'm just a regular dude. We share the ups and downs in our relationship while giving you step-by-step techniques for improving yours.
Make sure you subscribe for your weekly double date full of totally doable sex tips, practical relationship advice, hilarious and honest stories of what really goes on behind closed bedroom doors, and so much more. It's the sex education you wish you'd had.
All right, we are recording on episode 62. Money.
It's appropriate that you started that way because I have a choose your own adventure.
Oh, okay.
For you.
Hit me.
You can choose one of 4 songs to sing to start us out with.
Okay.
She works hard for the money.
Okay.
Money, money, money. Mo money, mo problems. Or bitch better have my money.
She works hard for the money. I know 3 out of those 4 songs, but 2...
I knew you were going to pick that one.
It was the first one where I was like, I know that song and I know how to sing it. Mo Money, Mo Problems. I'm like drawing a blank on the tune right now.
Wow.
Help us out, Vanessa. Come on.
Well, I want to hear one other line other than she works hard for the money.
I don't know it. It does not exist in my brain.
Dang,
that knowledge.
Just that one line.
Yeah, but come on, help us out. What about Mo Money, Mo Problems?
More money we come upon, the more problems we see. Comic-Con.
Wow.
I was thinking about Comic-Con, apparently.
Interesting. So this might be why you don't hear Vanessa singing very often.
What they want from me. It's like the more money we come upon.
The more problems we see.
There we go. Now I'm really wondering, is it come upon or come across?
Come upon just sounds really
very
weird.
Formal.
Very formal.
Okay, took a quick Google break. It's the more money we come across. I got too formal with upon.
That makes a lot of sense. I would love to just come across more money.
Yeah.
I mean, that could really like short circuit the need to do this podcast episode at all. If we just all, if we could just come across more money, then yeah, maybe we wouldn't need to talk about it. Maybe we wouldn't need to bridge differing perspectives on money.
Who wouldn't want to just come across more money without the problems?
Yeah, but the problem is the more money we come across, the more problems we see. So maybe it won't work. Okay, but wait, what's the last? That was money. I don't even know who that is. Money. Okay, who is that?
I don't know.
Oh, man. And then what was the last one?
Bitch better have my money, Rihanna.
Oh, okay.
Oh, jeez.
I don't even know how that one goes.
Bitch better have my money.
Oh, of course.
We're going to have to cut this. This intro. This is way too much singing for one episode. But before we go any further, we just want to say an extra special thank you to Green Chef for being a repeat sponsor of the podcast. Green Chef is the #1 meal kit for eating well, and you can go to greenchef.com/pillow135 and use code PILLOW135 to get $135 off across 5 boxes plus free shipping on your first box.
All right, so I totally understand the Pillow 135. Now, when you first read that, I was like, who the hell is Green Chef already advertising with that has pillow, like a pillow podcast?
You thought there were like 134 other podcasts?
I don't know. I was like, oh, they just like pick some random numbers to go after pillow. But no, we are the only pillow. And you get $135 off. So Pillow 135, y'all.
Today we're talking about money and specifically how to navigate money in your relationship. So we are obviously not financial advisors.
Nope.
We're not going to be giving financial advice.
Nope.
So this is not the episode to listen to if you want to learn about like Bitcoin or NFTs or investments. But we are going to talk about how to navigate the challenges that money can stir up in your relationship. So we asked our Instagram audience if finances ever put a strain on their relationship. 68% said yes. Honestly, that feels really low. I feel like we probably could have worded it as, have they ever put a strain in your relationship? And that would have been 100% for sure. Yeah. Everybody's had a fight about money at least once. But 20% of our audience said that they often are experiencing strain, disagreements, fighting because of money. And money is one of the top 3 things that couples fight about and even break up over.
Oh, I mean, and definitely break up over. Like if it's one of the top 3 things that you fight about, it's for sure going to be one of the top 3 things that you break up or divorce over.
Money, sex, and kids, the big 3. And I think the challenge with money is that so many of us just have no freaking clue how money works, how investing works, how to save, like even basic financial information.
And we're not going to tell you.
We'll tell you some basic stuff. But I think it's just such a big problem. And I will take responsibility for this too. Like I definitely had periods of my life and periods of our relationship where I didn't know anything. I kept my head in the sand and it caused issues in our relationship. It caused issues for me. Like I've been there. And so, you know, I don't want to speak from this like holier than thou place. There's still so much about money that I don't know. But I think it's just so common. Like, where do we learn the basics about how to deal with money? I mean, I remember in school, we learned how to write a check. That was like the sole extent of my financial education was learning how to write a check.
I feel like there was a point in time where maybe I was in like 6th grade or something where I knew how to balance a checkbook. And then as soon as I got a checkbook, it didn't really seem necessary. And then very quickly, we got to the point where it really became unnecessary. One, because pretty much nobody writes checks. Though ironically, we just bought a house and like
we've been writing a lot of checks.
Why is it that people in the like construction or like home inspection business like have not figured out how PayPal works or like how to accept credit card payments? It boggles my mind. It's like they kind of don't want to get paid on time. But anyway, going back to that. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, with the internet and mobile banking and stuff, the idea of like balancing a checkbook is it's not outdated. It is important to know how much money you have. And banks do make mistakes sometimes. You would be surprised. But yeah, I mean, now it's like you just tap that thing in the app and it tells you like, oh, you spent this much. You spent this much on these things and you had this much money come in from these things. But I was also just going to say on the flip side of what Vanessa said of like not really knowing how things work or keeping your head in the sand, I can say for sure I have been guilty in our relationship of feeling this pressure to know how things work and to project that, oh, I know what I'm doing. And in reality, I have very limited knowledge. Just really, I have a lot of ideas or platitudes of like how I want our financial situation to be. And I'm definitely guilty of sort of like not practicing what I'm preaching in terms of being like, oh, well, yeah, like I want to be saving a lot of money. I want to have this set aside for that and that set aside for whatever. And then like Vanessa hears that. And then what she sees is like, oh, well, we're spending a lot of money on this and that, or he spends a lot of money on himself. And, you know, there was definitely a kind of a reckoning point where it was like, hold on, I'm like saying all these things. I don't really know what they mean. I don't know if I'm actually doing any of them. And that's also a crappy message I'm sending to my wife about like, what is it that we're actually trying to do? Because I'm not actually doing the thing I'm saying I want to be doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it's this topic that it's confusing. It's convoluted. Most of us don't have any sort of education in it. And then we definitely don't know how to deal with it in relationships where now there are 2 people with confusing relationships with money who don't know what's going on and you have to communicate about it and all kinds of stuff. So it's totally understandable that this is one of the top 3 things that we are fighting about. So in this episode, we're going to kind of do advice column style again. We put up a call on Instagram to ask our community, like, tell us, how do you struggle with money in your relationships? What sort of fights does it cause? What conflicts are you in the middle of? So we have a bunch of examples we're going to walk you through. We're also going to walk you through some of our best tips for navigating finances together as a couple.
Before we do that, you know what time it is, right? It is review of the week time. We need like a little review of the week jingle or song that I could sing. Maybe someone could write me a little review of the week song jingle type thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a request.
I know, it is a request. All right, let's do this. Like your virtual sexpert best friends.
Aww.
Yeah, that's who we are. All right. Stumbled upon Vanessa and Xander's Instagram and absolutely fell in love right away. When I saw they had a podcast, I had to listen. I look forward to listening every single week, and I always end up learning so much and laughing out loud. Their content consistently improves my communication with my partner, and I can 100% say it has made our relationship a healthier one. Just worked up the courage to buy the foreplay guides and 30-day sex challenge and could not be more excited.
Ooh.
Even just a year ago, I would have not had the confidence to suggest these to my boyfriend, but now talking about sex is so much easier and so fun. Thank you, V and X. Keep doing what you're doing. Smiley face, heart, hands making a heart. Love your fellow. Oh, looks like a woman graduating from some kind of school. Unicorn puppy face. Woo!
Woo! What a delightful review. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
These reviews really go so far in helping the podcast grow and reach new couples. It helps Apple display the podcast more often when people are looking for a new podcast to listen to and they see, oh my gosh, look at all these 5-star reviews. This is worth me listening to. They're more likely to listen. So we really appreciate you taking the time to leave a review. If you have ever listened to an episode and we've made you laugh or given you a good tip that you've put to use in your life, we would so appreciate you taking the time to leave a review. And as our way of saying thank you, we enter you into a giveaway every week going forward once you write us that review in Apple Podcasts. And if you are featured as the review of the week, you can DM us on Instagram at Vanessa Marin Therapy and ask us a question, and we will give you a free mini personalized coaching session. So we'll send you a voicemail over Instagram right back with some of our best tips and advice. All right, so let's get into it. So the first thing that we wanted to start with is just kind of some general advice about navigating money and relationships. We got a lot of great questions, and we're going to share different tips within our responses to each of those questions. But we were also realizing there are some other tips that don't quite fit into all the questions that we wanted to share with you. So we figured let's get started on a little bit of a foundation of our best tips, techniques, tools, and resources for navigating money in your relationship. So first one is to start talking about money slowly and in a general sense first.
Okay, so I shouldn't make a calendar invite for 4 hours long this Saturday morning that's all right, we are figuring this money shit out.
Time to review your expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. It's very similar to sex in this way.
Oh,
that
yes.
A lot of us wait with sex and with money. We don't want to talk about it because it feels like this very taboo topic. We're not supposed to talk about it. It's too uncomfortable. We don't know how to. We don't know what to say.
It's just supposed to work naturally or spontaneously.
So we wait until things are really bad and we're arguing, we're fighting, there's disconnection, and then we start talking about it. But by that point, so much has built up that it winds up just spilling out in a really uncomfortable, unhelpful conversation.
Or you end up disclosing oh my God, I've actually been judging you for your purchases for the last 6 months, and now we're going to review all of them. And how is it possibly going to go positive if that's what comes out? How are you going to set yourselves up for success? How is money not going to be a super triggering topic next time if the first time you talk about it, it's this big, boiling over situation?
So we want to ease our way into these conversations. And instead of going in hard with we need to talk about how you spent money last week, or you need to return that thing that you bought, instead start talking about it in a more general sense. And this is even a great tip for people to use where, if you're dating or you're just starting a relationship, have money be a topic of conversation from early in the relationship with questions what's your relationship with money like? When you think about money, what kinds of feelings get stirred up for you? So you're talking about it in this general sense rather than going in straight for somebody's, personal experiences with it. And sort of looped into that is our next tip, which is to talk about your money stories with your partner.
I think the word story really makes this powerful because it helps you realize we each have our own perspectives. We each have our own stories. They came from somewhere. There's no objective truth. This is the right thing to do with money and this is the wrong thing to do with money. And I think a lot of us build up this idea in our head that we are doing things the right way and other people are doing things the wrong way. And it's this very black and white thing, and that kind of becomes a non-starter for a lot of people, because it's like, if you've already decided that there's only one way to do something and your partner's doing it another way, like, how are you going to bridge that gap? And so I think taking responsibility for the fact that, like, yeah, I have a story of how it works that is based on all of these various influence and input, and you have a story.
Yeah, so I think the really important part of that, of like the story aspect of it, is to go back through your history. We all have spent an entire lifetime being taught and absorbing messages about money. So if you go back to your childhood and you think about, like, how did you see your parents treat money? What kinds of conversations did they have about it with each other? What kinds of arguments did they have about it? And then, what did they teach you? What did they directly tell you about money and how it works and how the world works, versus like maybe there were things that they never directly told you, but you sort of absorbed it. Like maybe your parents had a lot of anxiety around money and they never said anything directly like, you have to be really careful with money, but you could just feel that, like, ooh, money is something that's scary and it's overwhelming and there's never enough of it. Right?
I mean, I think another interesting thing too, I'm assuming you're listening to this podcast and you're probably an adult, is like, as an adult talking to your parents about money, because I think that, when you are a kid, your parents selectively give you certain information about money. Like, your parents aren't sitting down with you being like, all right, kids, here's our financial situation. Like, let's review the finances. This month was a great month for us. We put $20,000 in the bank and blah, blah, blah. And so I think, I've realized when it comes to money stuff that, like, when I talk to my parents now about what things were like when I was a kid versus when I was a kid, and remembering what they were talking about, like, the story is a bit different now. I think your parents are probably going to be a lot more forthcoming with you about, like, what was the financial situation? Like, remember that time that you guys bought that house when I was 10? Like, what was that like for you financially? And it might be interesting to just hear, like, they give you a somewhat different story or a more complete picture of what it was like now versus what it was like then. And that might help you realize, some of these messages I got when I was a kid were maybe somewhat incomplete or, whitewashed in certain ways or something like that.
Yeah, but I think going back to what you were saying earlier is, like, when you have this conversation with your partner, you really develop so much more understanding and compassion and empathy for your partner. Because it's so easy for us to fight about money. And, like, I can't believe you bought that. I can't believe you haven't saved enough for this. It's so easy to fight about it and to feel like, God, we're just on totally different pages. My partner wants something completely different from what I want. But if you take the time to have this conversation and peel those layers back and recognize, like, wow, my partner grew up with so much scarcity, with, like, their parents struggling to put food on the table, with money being something that feels so scary and overwhelming to them. Like, now I understand why they're so frugal, or I've been calling them cheap our whole relationship. It's like, you just get to understand where those beliefs and those stories and those ideas came from. And like you were saying earlier, it helps you realize there is no one objective right way to deal with money. It's like, we just all are doing our best with the baggage that we've been given, from our early experiences.
Yeah, and I think our parents probably all tried to do their best to give us messages that they thought were the best messages for us to receive as kids around money. And when you talk to your parents now about it, you might see that there was other stuff going on as well. And just, at least for me, that kind of helps me question some of these ideas that I feel like were just baked into me from growing up, and realize, those things that might feel really strong because they were just messages that, got delivered from a really early age, maybe there's more to it than just that stuff.
Yeah, so sharing your personal history with money with your partner. And one other really important aspect of this is to talk about gender roles. How did you see money and gender roles when you were growing up, and even, throughout your entire life? So I think a very common thing that comes up in male-female relationships, sort of what Xander was alluding to earlier, is like, we are raised to believe that men are the one that handle the finances. Men are just better at this kind of thing. Like, men are better at numbers and math, and they're smarter about, like, investments and all of that kind of stuff. And I think definitely the tides are turning. Of course, in this day and age, we have so many more women who are taking financial control, even being in full financial control of like their families and, in their relationships. But I still think like I'll say for myself, I definitely had periods of my life, and even growing up with a mom who was very, financially like participatory in my family. Like I still had phases of my life where I just had this like head in the sand approach to money, where it was like, I don't know, it just feels scary and it feels like a lot and I don't really care. I'm just going to ignore it. I'm just going to kind of put my head in the sand.
And I have a ton of empathy for Vanessa for that now, because we've shared more of our money stories. And for example, Vanessa's mom was pretty much the primary breadwinner. Both of your parents worked, but your mom was the primary breadwinner for you growing up, and still is. And yet, like Vanessa was saying, and yet your mom doesn't really handle the finances in your family. Mm-hmm. Your mom
she handles the making of the money.
She makes the money,
not
but she
what
doesn't
to do with the money.
Yeah, like where the money is, how you access the money. I found out early on in our relationship, Vanessa's mom has never once used an ATM. Mm-hmm. She does not know how to take cash out of the bank, except if she walks into the bank to get the cash. So, I mean, there's like just stuff like that where it's like, of course, if that's how things are happening growing up, like you're gonna take something from that.
Yeah. So at the beginning of our relationship, I really fell into that. Like, yeah, Xander's the one who controls the money, and he can make the decisions about where to go. And I'm thinking I'm just being this like, freewheeling, lackadaisical, like, yeah, do whatever you want, babe, like partner. And I didn't realize that it actually felt like a tremendous amount of pressure to him to be the sole person responsible for all of our financial decisions. And so we had some important conversations at the beginning of our relationship of Xander saying like, hey, I need you to participate in this. Like, it's not fair for me to be the only one navigating this. And I don't want to be the only one navigating this. So that kind of feeds into our next piece of advice, which is to divide up the mental load of finances.
Because there is a big mental load when it comes to finances, even if there's not a lot of work. Like if, especially in this day and age with everything online, like there are a lot of ways to automate the vast majority of your finances so that in theory, the amount of like hours you're putting in weekly or monthly to manage your finances is quite low. But I will say, as someone who has automated a great deal of our financial stuff, like there is an outsized mental load associated with that feeling of, okay, well, how are things doing? Is everything okay? What if this happens? What if that happens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting because we had that conversation in our relationship. We've had it a few times, and it just rears its head so easily. Like Xander was saying, we just bought a house. This is like the biggest purchase that we've ever made. So money is definitely front and center for us right now. And I noticed during the whole mortgage process, I was like, Xander's really taken the lead with everything mortgage related. Like he's getting all the paperwork, he's coordinating with the mortgage broker. And it was just such a great reminder to me of like, it's so easy to slip into these patterns of feeling, putting the pressure and the onus on you. And we both need to make a conscious effort to say, hold on a second, are we dividing the mental load around this in a way that feels fair? So
yeah, and you also observed me being a little stressed out and starting to have more anxieties and worries and kind of like spiral a couple of times around like, oh my God, interest rates are going up, or like, what if this happens? What if that happens? And I feel like you did a really good job of it. Like you could have just been like, hey, you need to chill out. And that would have not felt very good. I would have been like, well, screw you. You're not doing any of the work. It's easy for you to say that, and that's how you start building a resentment. Like, oh, well, of course she just she doesn't have to worry about anything. So of course she's chill about it. But instead you acknowledge like, hey, I see that you are doing all of these things. And so I can understand how that is feeling anxious or stressful, and like, are there ways that we could rebalance this? Like, what do you need from me? Yeah. Are there ways that I could get more involved? And and then I was able to make a decision of, I think I ultimately didn't get you too much more involved. It was just helpful for me to hear that, to have that offer from you. And I was like, actually, like what we are doing now is it's not a lot of work. We're almost done with the process. Like I just need to be able to vent about this sometimes. But yeah, it was just helpful to hear you say that.
Yeah. So I think a big part of the mental load is first going to be educating yourselves. Like we said, we just don't learn how to manage finances. So many of us are completely clueless. And again, I totally get and empathize with how easy it feels to just just bury my head in the sand. I don't want to open up my bank accounts. I don't want to look at the numbers. I'm going to get stressed out. It's going to be lower than I thought it was. I totally get how scary it can be to take an honest look at your finances. And you have to do it. You have to learn at least the bare minimum about how your finances work. And so that includes how much money you're bringing in. This is a little bit of an embarrassing story, but there was a point in time early in our relationship where I didn't even know what my salary was. I was working a crappy marketing job, and I think you and I were starting to get serious and talking about money. And I didn't even know what my actual salary was. I thought it was a different number. I was $5,000 off, and it was a very low salary at that time. So $5,000 is a big deal. So it's you have to know at least the bare minimum of what's coming in, what's coming out, and where things are. This is another really important aspect of it, of there's so many people who don't even know where their money is. And we've heard so many awful stories about, relationships where one partner gets seriously injured or even passes away and the other partner is clueless, has no clue. I don't know where the money is. I don't know what the accounts are. I don't know how to access it.
Yeah,
I don't
what
know
are the passwords?
Nothing. So you have to know at least that bare minimum information. A couple of other resources that I'll pass along, the first book that I read about money was Ramit Sethi's I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And I still recommend this book to this day. I've recommended it to so many people. It's just such a great practical guide. It really breaks things down for you. It's written just in a really easy to read type of way. And once I read that book, I was oh, money is not as complicated as I thought it was. There are just a couple of things that I needed to learn. Now I feel like I have this foundation. So I think the interesting thing about money is there is always more to learn. You could get super, super advanced and, really nuanced about specific investments and different ways to put you could get really advanced with it. But for your average person, understanding, making basic investments, it's really not that hard. It's just a little bit of basic information that you need to learn, and you can be fine. If you get excited by money, you want to learn more, sure, go ahead. But for most people, it really doesn't take that much to get a financial foundation. So I definitely recommend that book. A lot of people have told us they love You Need a Budget, just a really practical way to create a budget, keep track of your money. And then for women in particular, I've heard great things about Her First 100K and Dow Janes. Those are both specifically geared towards helping women kind of take their heads out of the sand and become more, financially independent and knowledgeable. So definitely check out any and all of those resources. But let's talk a little bit more about Green Chef before we go any further. We are really excited to be partnering with them again. We're getting another Green Chef delivery next week, and so we are looking through the menu options right now. There are, 25 options on this page right now?
Yeah, there are a lot, and they look really good. I am getting
really hungry because all of these look so good. I think, honestly, every single one of these I would eat. They look delicious.
This is exactly the way that I like to eat. It is just simple, high quality, tasty stuff.
Mm-hmm. And Xander and I are also gluten-free, and so we really like that we can select specifically gluten-free. There are a lot of different options that you can choose based on your own dietary preferences. So the good news is that Green Chef has a special deal just for you. You can go to greenchef.com/pillow135 and use the code pillow135 to get $135 off across 5 boxes and even free shipping on your first box. So we really like Green Chef because they are the most sustainable meal kit, the only meal kit that's both carbon and plastic offset. They offset 100% of our carbon footprint as well as 100% of the plastic in every box, which is just really cool. They also have great food. Again, these options look delicious.
Yeah,
I'm really excited about all of them.
Yeah, I kind of
shrimp
want
scampi right here, Thai coconut chicken soup.
Yeah, this Monterey Jack smothered chicken, I could eat that. I could smother my face in that right about now. God, we're going to have lunch right after this.
I don't know if they're going to allow us to run this ad with you talking about smothering. But anyways, you could go to greenchef.com/pillow135 and use the code pillow135 to get $135 off across 5 boxes plus free shipping on your first box. And then our final general piece of advice that we want to give, we're sharing a lot more general advice than I thought we were going to, but this is all important. Okay, so our final piece is to create individual and shared money goals. So I think when it comes to money, most of us just have these really negative associations and connotations that come up. Like we start feeling anxiety, we feel scarcity, lack, overwhelm, right? And so it's very easy to have this negative relationship with money. And I think a really, really great thing that we were able to do pretty early in our relationship was to focus on some positive, exciting goals that we wanted to work towards. So our conversations about money weren't just all about like, oh my God, we don't have enough and we have to save and we have to do.
Yeah, or it's like, I can't, like we can't do this.
Yeah, so just being able to have positive things that you're working towards, things that you feel excited about. And those can be small little things like, I want to save up to buy this really cool jacket that I think I'm going to love. It's going to be such a classic, timeless piece versus really big picture things like, one of our huge financial bucket list goals is to be able to build our own house from scratch. That's obviously going to be a huge financial investment, but we both feel excited about the possibility of doing something like that. So it's like, they can be small goals, they can be big goals, but having ways that you can create a positive, exciting relationship with money versus it all just being about rules and guidelines and things that you're not allowed to do.
But I think it's so important to have a range of these goals, from stuff that's more short-term to stuff that's more long-term. Because I can say from experience that when you only have these ultra long-term or ultra lofty goals, that can become a problem. Because if you are if you're like 20 years old and you're like, we need to have $5 million saved so that we can retire, and like that's your goal, that's going to create a lot of pressure and problems because you're so not even close to that. Like, where do you even get started with that? Mm-hmm. And so it's like, at first it can kind of feel comforting because you're like, okay, cool, I don't really need to worry about that for a while. But if that's your perspective, then like you're not actually doing anything to make progress toward that. Or you can use it to kind of beat yourself over the head. Maybe a couple years go by and you're like, oh God, I haven't made any progress towards this goal. And what's wrong with me? Mm-hmm. So it's okay to have some big goals, but also make some short-term goals that you can be working towards so that you can feel good about your progress. Because otherwise you're just going to be like, well, I don't even know where to start, or like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? I'm not making any progress towards this goal that I don't even know how to make progress towards. All right, so let's get into the questions now, because we got some good ones.
Yeah.
Help, who's in the wrong here? In the past, my husband was judgmental of my spending. He would ask how much certain things cost and express disapproval, even if it was a reasonable price. So over time, I found myself hiding purchases from him more and more. He recently went through some statements and found a bunch of surprises, and now he's furious with me.
Ooh, this is such an interesting one.
And I think this is probably very common.
Oh my gosh, we should have put up an Instagram poll that asks, like, have you ever hidden a purchase from your partner? Because I think this happens a lot. And sometimes it's not even a really intense, like, oh my gosh, let me make sure that they don't see it and I'm going to hide it and hide the bag. Sometimes it's just sort of like I'm just going to grab that package really quick so my partner doesn't see it kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, or it's, I kind of got this vibe from this question that it wasn't so much of a like, oh my God, I have to keep this from him. It's just like, I don't want to deal with the disapproval thing. I don't want to deal with the question that he's going to ask because I know this is a reasonable purchase. Like, we need this for our family. This is totally reasonable. It's not even very expensive, but it's easier if I just don't mention it to him because he's going to do that thing he does where he like picks it apart.
Yeah. Okay. I think this is a prime example of a situation where it would be so useful for this couple to have conversations about their money stories and like, what is it that they're both bringing into their relationship? How do they think money should be handled? Because at the end of the day, like hiding purchases from each other, like that's not the way to go.
No.
Like you can't be, it's almost like when you're hiding something from your partner, you're also sort of trying to hide it from yourself. Like, I don't really want to look at how much I'm spending, that kind of thing. So like, you've got to be open and have everything out on the table and be able to share with each other, like, yeah, what do we think our money should be doing? Like, how should we be using money in our relationship? One thing that comes to mind for me is that you're not going to ever get to a place where you agree 100% of the time on how money should be spent. Like, we're not trying to tell you everybody should sit down and say, like, okay, we're going to spend 3% of our money on clothing and 2% of our, it's like, you don't need to get that granular about it. So one thing that can really help, like, once you've had those open and honest conversations, one thing that you can decide to do is that maybe every month you each get a certain amount of money that's just for your own discretionary spending, and you get to spend it however you want, and you don't get to ask questions of each other or like pass any sort of judgments on each other.
Yeah,
so
the no judgment zone.
Oh yeah, the no judgment zone. So even if it's something small, like, hey, we each get $20 a month, $100 a month, to do whatever we want with it, it can feel really nice to like have that freedom. And then sort of on the other end of that, another thing that you could do is maybe you set a specific amount where it's like, if I want to make a purchase over X dollars, I have to check in with you first and we have to have a conversation about it, versus like, you guys don't need to drive each other nuts running every little purchase by each other. Like, oh, is it okay if I spend $4 to buy the Windex? Is it okay if I spend an extra $2 on, this nice paper towel versus like the cheap, you don't want to drive each other nuts like that. So maybe it's just some sort of conversation about, yeah, okay, as long as it's under $100, whatever, do what you want to do. But if it's over that, we have to have a quick conversation.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that comes to mind with this is, it sounds like for this person, there was a time in the past or many times in the past where, the husband was pretty judgmental and expressed some serious disapproval. And that was a bit traumatic for this person. Like it was something that still feels yucky. And, this person is, not wanting to experience that again, and therefore, making certain decisions about how they do or don't disclose purchases to their partner. I think that it is super important to be able to discuss what happened in the past and how you're feeling about it, because the partner may not be aware the things that he says are hurtful or are, causing grief for this person. So yeah, I wonder if they've talked about it before. I wonder if the partner is aware of, how the person is feeling. It feels like there's some unprocessed feelings here.
For sure. Yeah. And we just don't know the full story. Like the person's saying, my husband disapproved of this, but it's like, well, what's the story behind that? Like maybe he's thinking, gosh, I really have this goal for us to be able to buy our own home. And so I want us to live as frugally as possibly, for this next temporary period of time, because I'm trying to store away as much money for a down payment. Like it could be something much more kind than that, rather than just like, hey, jerk, you shouldn't be spending that much money on whatever you just bought,
Yeah, I would have spent less if I was doing that.
Yeah, a lot of times, like, we're not trying to be assholes with each other. It's just that there's, like, more going on that we haven't really shared openly with each other. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the money goals that we talked about earlier on come into play, and the importance of sharing them, and then ideally in a long-term relationship, getting on the same page about what those goals are for you, or figuring out where there's overlap or goals that seem like they're at odds with each other, and figuring out, okay, does it feel like we could accomplish both of these, or do we need some kind of compromise, or do we need to decide if we change some of these? Because if you know what the goals are, then hopefully you can each be making decisions, money decisions, spending money in a way that is in more alignment or integrity with the goals that you have.
Okay, here's the next question. My husband makes about 80% of our household income and provides the insurance. I essentially work to pay for daycare for our 2 children. We've talked about me staying home because the cost would be the same, but I enjoy my job. So basically, he pays for everything, and it can cause a lot of tension. I feel guilty spending money because I didn't earn it. A big issue is health-related costs. I have an autoimmune disorder that leads to lots of medical bills. He pays them, but definitely makes a fuss over how much they cost, and it often leads to fights and me me feeling guilty. But I also can't help that I'm sick and need maintenance care. I don't think anyone would like the alternative of me losing my colon and needing a poop bag for life. This is a hot topic in our house. Okay.
A lot to unpack in this one.
This question boggled my mind, but let's address it in two separate parts. So first, let's address the perspective of my partner makes more of the money, like he pays for everything. I feel guilty because I didn't earn it. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I can say I can totally understand this feeling. I've been here. I think a lot of people have been here before. I mean, especially in the United States, we have this idea drilled into us about self-reliance and earning our own money, being able to support ourselves. And it can feel really important that I'm earning this money for me and I can support myself with it.
Yeah, I mean, we each had periods of our relationship where the other partner was the primary breadwinner. So when I went back to grad school, I didn't work for a while, and you were like, I've got it, I'll take care of us financially. And then when we moved to Berlin, I said, okay, I've got us financially. You cannot work for a while and figure out what your next move is. So
and that was really hard.
It was very hard for both of us to be in the position of like, even though it was a conscious decision we were making of like, okay, my partner's taking care of things for a little bit, they're holding it down. Like it was still very hard for us to feel, like we both felt guilty about like, oh, I'm being a financial burden. I'm not bringing anything to the table. Like it was hard. So it sounds like this couple has already had a conversation where they've agreed like, hey, this is what works best for us and our family at this point in time.
Yeah, like
is
they've
to have this
agreed
arrangement. It's not like the person sending in the question was like, I've just decided to be lazy and do nothing and my partner would do it all. Like this was a conscious decision both partners made.
Yeah, I mean, and they've also made a conscious decision that this person works to pay for daycare versus staying home and not paying for daycare, even though that's kind of a wash in terms of money. Yeah, they have decided that this is the arrangement that works for them and that they want to be together.
So I think both of us can say from experience that like this just is challenging. I don't think you're going to get to a place where you never feel this sense of like guilt or imbalance. You're going to be thinking about it. But I think in those moments for yourself and with your partner, it's really important to keep reminding yourselves like, this is the decision that we've made. If we want to change the decision and we want to have some sort of different financial arrangement, we can do that at any point. But this is what we've decided for right now. And therefore, like the money that we are bringing in, like it's our money. This is our shared money.
It is our money. We bring in different amounts of it, but it is our money.
I think in most relationships, we just have this idea that once you get into a relationship, you're just supposed to combine finances. But there are so many options. Like if you want to combine finances, you like that idea of like what's yours is mine, what's mine is yours. Great, go for it. But that's not the only way to do it. And I think we have a couple of other questions that sort of get into this a little bit. But you can keep some money separate. You can keep all of your money separate. Like there are a lot of different arrangements to do. So that might be a conversation to have like, hey, do we like this approach that we're doing right now, or do we want to make any sort of adjustments to it? But I think the bottom line is that if you have made a conscious decision that you're sharing money and that you are going to break down, work responsibilities in this way, then yes, you are still sometimes going to feel guilty. Those feelings are going to come up, but you give yourself that reminder of, hey, this is the decision that we've made and I don't need to be feeling this feeling.
Yeah. And therefore, I think you also need to adjust both of your language around how this works. Like the person writing in said, he pays for everything. He does not pay for everything.
We pay for
you
it.
Both. Sorry, you collectively. Yeah, we. That makes a little more sense. We pay for everything. Mm-hmm. I can just tell the way the entire question is written, there is a underlying assumption baked in that it's his money that he gives to you sometimes, or your problems that he is paying for sometimes. And if that's the language that you are both using around it, then of course it's going to create tension. Of course you're going to feel guilty around it. So I would challenge you first to try to say it in a different way, to start saying it in a different way. And over time, you might start feeling it in a different way.
Okay, so let's get to the second part of the question, dealing with health-related costs.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to come out and say it. This is fucked up. Your partner has a health issue. I mean, in this case, it sounds like probably it's a health issue that you've always known about, that this partner has always had. You got into a relationship with this partner knowing that they have a certain health issue and there are bills associated with it. You cannot hold that over their head. You can't shame them into their autoimmune disorder going away. I mean, I guess you could shame them into foregoing medical care. And is that what you want? Like, so if you find yourself doing this, like, where is that coming from? Is it that you want that? Like, are you feeling resentful that they have this health issue? Are you wishing that they would seek less medical care? Or are you just doing something that's kind of fucked up? Do you need to examine what is going on with you? And I think you do.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line, you cannot make somebody feel guilty for being sick and needing medical care. Like, somebody who's going through something like this, like, it's not fun for them. It's not exciting. It's not like, I'm just going on a fun shopping spree. I'm doing some online shopping for more autoimmune disorder care. Like, no, this is awful. And I'm sure that this person would rather be healthy and not having to be spending any of this money on their care. But I think anything health related, you just cannot make your partner feel bad about it. What you can say, like, it is okay to be financially stressed. And because, especially in this country, our medical system is so fucked up, people have to pay overwhelming costs for medical care. So it's okay to be scared, to be anxious, like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know how we're going to pay for that this month. I'm feeling so scared. So it's okay to say that, but you need to make it really clear to your partner, like, your health is of the utmost importance to me, and I will go to the end of the earth to do whatever I can to help you feel healthy again. Sometimes it does scare me, and sometimes the bills that we get are overwhelming, but I know that this is not your fault, and I am willing to pay these. We together are going to pay these. I know, look at, I slipped into the language.
I caught you. Yeah, I was going to say that. That is the key thing, the language there. We are going to pay for this.
We are going to pay for this.
If it's like, because there's a huge difference between saying, oh my God, I'm feeling really scared about the bill that I am getting and that I am going to have to pay for, versus I'm feeling scared about this bill that we are getting and how we are going to pay for it. Like, it's a collective thing. It's not like, oh, I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart.
Yeah. Whew. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
All right. So I'm the primary shopper in our family for necessities, food, clothing, etc. I take on the mental load of these tasks and do what needs to be done to keep our home running smoothly, but my partner always complains about my spending. I try to explain to them that my spending will be higher because I do the shopping for our family, but it still creates problems. This sounds a bit like the last one, almost, where it's like you're thinking about my spending versus your spending, when you guys should be thinking about our spending. I'm assuming that you have combined your finances if you're talking about like how one person is spending for the family and the other is, I'm not sure what the other person's doing, but the other is complaining that somehow you're spending too much money on the stuff that they all need.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not that there's one partner who's just going nuts, like online shopping and finding all this fun stuff for themselves. It's like, yeah, of course I'm spending more because I'm the one who does the grocery shopping, and I go to the drugstore and I get the kids' clothes and I pay for their all that kind of stuff. So I think in this case, yeah, the language is really important, making it clear to your partner, like, this is not my spending. I happen to be the one who is wielding the credit card in that moment, but this is spending for our family. It's for us. It's for, the two of us together, our whole family, whatever.
Yeah, and if you don't like that, if you disagree with some of that, you are welcome to get more involved. Maybe we can go on a couple shopping trips together so that you can experience like what it is like, see the decisions that are being made firsthand, or you can even try your hand at, the shopping or whatever for a couple of weeks and see how that goes for you. But it's not fair to be like, oh, well, you're just doing that on your own and I don't like the way that you're doing it, but I'm not close enough to it that I can give any real advice other than that's too much money.
Yeah. So, I mean, it might be the opportunity to redistribute the mental load and responsibilities. Maybe you do decide like, okay, it's going to be my partner's job to do the grocery shopping or, any other certain task. I also think it could be really useful for these two to sit down together and to make a budget, and to talk about, okay, how much money do we want to spend? Let's take a look at like the last 6 months of expenses and see like how have we been spending our money? Because you can definitely have conversations about, hey, it does seem like our grocery bill is really creeping up. Let's take a look at like what we're buying and see if there are any ways for us to cut back on it. So you can absolutely do that, but it's together as a team rather than just complaining to your partner of you're spending too much money. Okay, here's the last question. I'm the breadwinner of our family while my partner makes much less. We split costs on everything, but how do we make it fair? They want to feel like they're pulling their weight, but also don't want to contribute beyond their means, and I don't want to be saddled with a disproportionate amount of contributions just because I make more.
Interesting.
Okay, so when it comes to shared expenses, I think that there are two general categories of approaches. So either you share everything 50-50. It's just like, yeah, it doesn't matter how much you make or how much I make. Like if we buy a $100 TV, can you buy a TV for $100?
I don't know. Maybe a small one.
Yeah. I'm like really struggling to come up with examples of like money and some specific item. Okay, you buy a really small $100 TV. So either you can say we're both going to spend $50 on this TV. It doesn't matter if you make $100,000 and I make $50,000. Like we're both sharing the cost of this TV 50-50. Or you can do a proportionate type of thing where you say, okay, if you make this much more than I do, like we're both going to contribute 30% of our income into this shared pot and buy things out of that. So the amount, let's say again, like Xander's making way more money than I am. So the amount that he's putting into the pot is going to be bigger than mine, but the percentage is going to be the same.
So I guess in your example of like 100K versus 50K, I'm pretty sure I'm just doing the math in my head. It would be like I would contribute 66, 67, and you would contribute 33.
Yes, good math there.
So that I'm contributing twice as much as she does because I earn twice as much as she does.
Mm-hmm. So again, it's like there's no one right way to do it. Everybody can do different things in their relationships, but I think you have to talk about the pros and cons of each. I think it is tricky for somebody, if you have a big discrepancy in how much money you're making, like you're going to have to make adjustments to the kinds of things that you do together because one partner is going to be able to afford the big $200 TV, whereas maybe you could only afford the $50 TV on your own. So that's, the drawback of that approach. But the positive is that you feel like you're both contributing equally to the relationship. So with the second approach, though, the drawback is like, yeah, one person's going to be contributing a whole lot more objectively, dollars wise. So that might feel kind of weird or a little unfair, but the fairness is that you're both contributing proportionately. So things are going to feel, equally affordable or unaffordable, to each of you.
Yeah. I mean, and if both of those are feeling like, oh God, this doesn't feel good, of course, you can consider just combining your finances entirely so that it's basically like, well, there's a $100 TV. We're going to spend $100 out of this account where just all of our money is in it. And it's not like it's my money versus your money. It's just the money that we have.
Yeah. So I think just being able to have that conversation with each other and say, like, look, there are pros and cons of each approach. There's no one right way to do this. Like, we're going to have moments in our relationship where money feels stressful and uncomfortable. But like, if we look at these different options, which is the one that we would rather go with? But I also think one of the reasons why money gets so complicated is that it actually is very complicated. Like how much money we earn is dependent on so many different factors. And we could have big conversations about like societal injustices and racial issues and gender discrimination. Like, it's not like we all go out into the world and have the exact same earning power, right? And like that can be really uncomfortable when you get into relationships with somebody who's maybe had really different opportunities presented to them, or they started from a much more challenging position than you started from. Like, I think we've been taught, especially in this country, that like, just work hard and pull yourself up by your bootstraps and everyone will succeed.
Or you're worth as much as you make. Or
exactly. Yeah. And like, that's just not true. So again, we could go on a whole other tangent about this, but I think just being able to recognize that there are such bigger factors at play than just like, hey, we should be earning the exact same amount of money. And actually going more off of what you said, that like our value is in how much money we earn and can bring in, like going back to some of the other questions about where it sounded like, there were partners who are agreeing to be stay-at-home partners. Like that's also a value that you're contributing to the family, of like
a huge value.
Yeah. I'm staying at home. I'm taking care of the kids. I'm, handling the mental load. I'm keeping things running smoothly. That's a value too. So even if you're on paper bringing in much less money than your partner or no money, like you're still contributing a value. We actually have a whole YouTube video called something like...
it's like, should stay-at-home parents get paid?
Something like that. We will link to that in the show notes, but there's some really interesting data about that. So,
and how much, if you were to convert that to a salary, like how much that work is worth, and it might surprise you. You might be out earning. I'm putting that in huge air quotes. Out earning, because this idea, the idea that like, earning almost implies like you are some value, but you might be surprised that your stay-at-home partner might be out earning you.
Oh, yeah. We'll put the link to check that out. But yeah, those are our best tips for navigating money in relationships. Obviously, this is a very complex topic. Like, I feel like we had so many other questions that we could have gotten to, and I think we could have done even deeper dives on all of them because there's just so much to unpack here. But I hope the general tips that we gave you were helpful. This is definitely something that should be like an open and ongoing conversation in relationships. This is not a like one and done conversation. This is like, every month you and your partner at least should be checking in and just having a conversation about where are we? Where do we want to be? How are we feeling about it? Like, it's just such an evocative topic. And if you want a little bit more support with the mental load aspect of finances, we've mentioned that phrase mental load a few times. We have a really great mental load workbook that really walks you through exactly how to separate the mental load in your relationship in a way that's going to feel fair and sustainable. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes too.
All right, well, that's it for today's episode of Pillow Talks. Thank you so much for listening. Join us again next week when we talk about what to do if your partner does not seem to care about your pleasure. We can't end like that. Try. Wow, Vanessa. Vanessa is so intrigued by next week's episode.
I don't know where that came from.
Wow. All right, you close us out then.
I'm really looking forward to this episode because I've been getting fired up by some of the DMs that we've been getting about this. But yeah, that was a strange noise. I'm sorry.
All right, so why don't you choose a new noise or word to end us on?
Can't wait. See you next week.
Bye.